Now, interviews can also be different according to the medium, as we have said. So we have two other different types according to the medium. We have said that the medium can either be a face-to-face or it can be a telephone. So face-to-face interviews are generally called personal interviews, and they are conducted in a direct contact between the interviewer and the interviewee, and the respondent or the researcher focuses on the respondent's experiences, the feelings, motivations, and sometimes can even start, let's say, free talks, or we just open the topic and let our respondents speak and express themselves, which is called a non-directive interview. Interviews that talk about feelings and motivations and preferences and things that are cognitive are called clinical interviews, whereas interviews that talk about or that focus on experiences are generally named focused interviews. For the second type of interviews with regard to medium, we have telephone interviews. They are rarely used. That is, we rarely hear about someone making or doing interviews via telephone. I never heard about this. Maybe you did. Who knows? But they are used for other purposes, such as industrial surveys. And they tend to be very quick, not like personal interviews or face-to-face interviews where we have, let's say, more time to talk about things and so forth. But for phone or telephone interviews, they are very quick. It is the maximum is 5 minutes. And they go direct to the point, in the sense that if you want to interview someone via telephone, you are going to go direct to the point. You ask, it's quite similar to the structured interview, but it's very limited. That you ask this and in a very quick and direct manner, and in the sense that you go strict and direct to your point. Not like the first one, you have much more flexibility and you have your time. You give the time to your respondent to speak and express themselves, and you can add or ask many other questions. Now, the difference between the two is that the telephone interview is quite economical, in the sense that it's easy and direct. Like, you do not have to waste your time in introducing your topic and breaking the ice and starting with an anecdote, for example, and then making your respondents feeling comfortable. And then there are a lot of procedures to do in a face-to-face interview, which is not the case in telephone interviews. You go direct to the point that the purpose of my interview is this, my question is this and this and that, and that's all. So that's the difference between the types of interview with regard to the medium. Now, as far as the third point is types of interviews according to the number of participants. As I have said earlier, for the number of participants, we can have an interview with only one participant, as we can have interviews with many participants or with a group of people. For one participant, it can be a personal interview, as we have said earlier, or a telephone interview. That is, it is an interview or a conversation with only one individual and one respondent. However, interviews can also be with many people. That is, you can interview many people at once. Although many scholars, and I agree with this, that they prefer to make them separate research instruments, that the interview is an instrument, focus groups are instruments, group discussions are different instruments, and so forth. However, they can be included under the umbrella of interviews. That is, they have the same principle by asking questions and obtaining answers or responses from the participants or the respondents. So, with many participants or interviews with many participants can include or are summarized in, I have given only 2 examples, there are many. For focus groups. So focus groups are generally groups where we have two groups of generally 6 to 12 participants, and we can have more sessions with them. That is, you will have the first session, the second session, and the third session, and so forth. We talk about a given topic, and our aim behind this topic is to know their perceptions of life. For example, I can collect 5 or 6 members of my university and ask them or interview them about their perception about the educational system in our department. And I can have one session with them which takes around 1 hour or even more. And the second session we talk about the same topic but with different perceptions, the third session, and so forth. So focus groups are generally related to a sharing or a collective perception or kind of dialogue between a group, not only two participants or two parties, but a group, where the researcher in here is not only an interviewer, but rather also a moderator, a motivator, and a facilitator. It is we're going to, as a researcher, or the researcher in here is going just to focus or enhance and motivate the conversation and facilitate it if there is an interruption, or sometimes we are fed up of talking, or sometimes we do not have something else to say. So the researcher is there to add more things to talk about or ask things more other things to talk about. This is for focus groups. They are I consider them as different research instruments, not like interviews, which are direct, like a question, answer, and that's all. For ethnographic interviews are part of the research method of ethnography. And for ethnography, we have mentioned that it is or a method that studies people's perceptions of the social life and or it studies the cultural perception of people to their life. And we can also use ethnographic interviews in the sense that the researcher is going to be a member of the society and asks those members about how they perceive life, how life is there, and what are the social connotations associated to this, what are the linguistic practices associated to that, and so forth. So ethnographic interviews also can be with a group of people or members of the society, or with a large number of people, not only of one individual. So interviews differ from being conducted with one participant, and they can be conducted with many participants.